Hello, Marketing 122. Let's talk about Chapter 1 a little bit. Chapter 1 is the visual merchandising concept in a contemporary environment. Over on page 4, we start talking about window trimmers. Window trimmer was designed just to present a pretty display. Today's visual merchandiser must create displays with an eye on function and artistic expression that ultimately increases stores' profitability. Are you seeing the tie-in? A visual merchandiser is tied directly to the profitability of the store. You're going to hear that over and over and over throughout the course. How what the visual merchandiser does is tied directly to the revenue, expenses, and ultimately the profit of an organization. Don't take this like it's just decorating a window, because there's a whole lot more to it. You're going to see that over the next 16 weeks. Talks about transforming the environment to a home-like setting in certain stores. You're going to have that opportunity later on in the semester. Those wishing to enter the field of visual merchandising must develop a knowledge necessary to create and install presentations of merit. Now, what does that mean? That means you can no longer get by designing windows that just is blah. You've got to create displays that attract people's attention. Ultimately, the goal of any marketeer is to turn a shopper into a buyer. You can have all the shoppers in the world come through your store. If they're not buying, whose fault is that? Think about it, visual merchandisers. Talks about over on page 6. It's about halfway down the page. It talks about a position as visual merchandiser involves a combination of skills including creativity, sense of order, dedication to design principles, and it goes on and on. Other important skills include the ability to create signs. You're going to have an opportunity to create signs here in the next few weeks. Visual merchandising, there's a lot to it. It talks about in major stores, visual merchandising roles tend to be specialized because there is often a large staff that carries out each product or project. Now that's in the big stores. Smaller stores, sometimes the owner is the one doing the visual merchandising. Sometimes these small businesses, or even maybe a medium-sized business, will go with a freelancer. They talk about freelancers. They talk about department stores, specialty change. Over here on page 8 it talks about the finished product should be one that attracts shoppers' attention and transforms them into a customer. Take a shopper, make them a buyer. In order to effectively differentiate one retail facility from another and bring the retail premises to its highest level of visual appeal, a variety of different components must be successfully coordinated. That's the key. You need multiple types of materials, display paraphernalia, and you got to bring it all together to make it a presentation that's going to make people buy the product. We talk about store design. On page 9 we start talking about mannequins, and then you'll see some mannequins over on page 10. We're going to start building our mannequin in just a couple weeks. So don't think you're not going to build one. Talk about props and materials. All these little subsections that we're talking about here on pages 8, 9, 10, 11, etc. You're going to actually do some of this throughout this semester. You're going to get very hands-on. Graphics and signage. Point of purchase. Very important. I think, if I remember correctly, there's an entire chapter or section dedicated to point of purchases later on in this textbook. Sound, we talk about sound usage. Over on page 12 and 13 we talk about the Bible of visual merchandising. The Bible of virtual merchandising is what's called VM plus SD. It's a periodical, it's a magazine. Visual Merchandising and Store Design is the name of the magazine. You'll see it over there on page 13 inside that long list of websites. That's the Bible. That's the Bible. Oh, on page 14, don't get into a bubble where you think all you're doing is presenting displays and presentations. You have also got to think about budgeting, labor costs, material costs. There's a whole lot more to it than what you might think there is. Then over on page 16 we talk about safety factors. We're going to come back to that one. Starting on page 17 we start talking about trends in visual merchandising. Please look that over. The increased use of graphics, opaque in store designs, resurgence of mannequins. But now when we talk about mannequins, you got to start watching about costs associated to mannequins, and you're going to get into that a little bit more. Signage, innovative lighting, stuff like that. But let's jump back to the safety factor, because that's where we get our assignment this week. We get our assignment from safety. Now, the assignment for this week is go out, take pictures, take a video, whatever you want to do, of unsafe displays. For example, a display that you can trip over. Perhaps a display or a sign that's hanging too low. Now think about it, I'm 6'4". When I bump into a sign, I get a little mad. So go out, take your camera, take your video phone, whatever you want to do, find us some unsafe presentations, signage, displays, something unsafe. Now, if you're approached by the store asking you not to do it, don't fight them. Don't argue that it's an assignment for class. Just say, okay, that's fine, and move on to the next one. Some stores will not want their unsafe acts advertised, and that's their prerogative. Don't get thrown in jail over this assignment, but go find us some unsafe displays, signage, whatever you want to do. Have that posted to the discussion board by 6 p.m. Thursday. That's your video and or pictures. And then by Sunday 6 p.m. make sure you have replied to at least 4 of your classmates' submissions. Now keep in mind when I say at least, you might post a reply to your classmate thinking it's the best post in the world. I may not like it, and you won't get full credit. It's always, always, always better to post to more than the 4 minimum classmates. Post to 6 or 7. You do the minimum, you'll get the minimum. You with me? You do the minimum, you get the minimum. And guys, I can tell if you're doing the minimum. Alright, so that's the assignment. That's a chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a great chapter, by the way. It'll set the ground, the foundation for all of the course, visual merchandising profession. So look over chapter 1 real good. Go out, find us some unsafe displays, signage, just anything unsafe inside a store or outside a store maybe. Don't know. All right, have fun with it.